Nice is the fifth most populous city in France, after Paris, Marseille, Lyon and Toulouse, and it is the capital of the Alpes Maritimes copyright department. The urban area of Nice extends beyond the administrative city limits with a population of about 1 million on an area of 721 km². Located on the southeast coast of France on the Mediterranean Sea, Nice is the second-largest French city on the Mediterranean coast and the second-largest city in the Provence-Alpes-Côte region after Marseille. The city is called Nissa La Belle, which means Nice the Beautiful, which is also the title of the unofficial anthem of Nice, written by Menica Rondelly in 1912. The area of today's Nice contains Terre Armata, an archaeological site which displays evidence of a very early use of fire. Around 350 BC, Greeks of Marseille founded a permanent settlement and called it Nicaea, after Nike, the goddess of victory. Through the ages, the town has changed hands many times. Its strategic location and port significantly contributed to its maritime strength. For years it was a dominion of Savoy, then became part of France between 1792 and 1815, when it was returned to Piedmont Sardinia until its re-annexation by France in 1860. The natural beauty of the Nice area and its mild Mediterranean climate came to the attention of the English upper classes in the second half of the 18th century, when an increasing number of aristocratic families took to spending their winter there. The city's main seaside promenade, the Promenade des Anglais, owes its name to the earliest visitors to the resort. For decades now, the picturesque Nicean surroundings have attracted not only those in search of relaxation, but also those seeking inspiration. The clear air and soft light has been of particular appeal to some of Western culture's most outstanding painters, such as Marc Chagall, Henri Matisse, Nίκαια de Saint-Phal and Armand. Their work is commemorated in many of the city's museums, including Musée Copyright Marc Chagall, Musée Copyright Matisse and Musée Copyright des Beaux-Arts. Nice has the second-largest hotel capacity in the country and it is one of its most visited cities, receiving 4 million tourists every year. It also has the third busiest airport in France after the two main Parisian ones. It is the historical capital city of the county of Nice. History, Foundation. The first known hominid settlements in the Nice area date back approximately 400,000 years. The Terre Armata archaeological site shows one of the earliest uses of fire and construction of houses, and flint findings are dated as around 230,000 years old. Nice was probably founded around 350 BC by the Greeks of Massilia, and was given the name of II to the first II plus or minus in honor of a victory over the neighboring Ligurians. The city soon became one of the busiest trading ports on the Ligurian coast. But it had an important rival in the Roman town of Semindum, which continued to exist as a separate city until the time of the Lombard invasions. The ruins of Semindum are in Simias, which is now a district in Nice. Early development. In the 7th century, Nice joined the Genoese League formed by the towns of Liguria. In 729 the city repulsed the Saracens. But in 859 and again in 880 the Saracens pillaged and burned it, and for most of the 10th century remained masters of the surrounding country. During the Middle Ages, Nice participated in the wars and history of Italy. As an ally of Pisa it was the enemy of Genoa, and both the King of France and the Emperor endeavored to subjugate it. But in spite of this it maintained its municipal liberties. During the course of the 13th and 14th centuries the city fell more than once into the hands of the Counts of Provence, but finally remained independent even if related to Genoa. Nice and Savoy. In 1388 the commune placed itself under the protection of the Counts of Savoy. Nice participated directly or indirectly in the history of Savoy up until 1860. The maritime strength of Nice now rapidly increased until it was able to cope with the Barbary pirates. The fortifications were largely extended and the roads to the city improved. In 1561 Emmanuel Philibert, Duke of Savoy, abolished the use of Latin as an administrative language and established the Italian language as the official language of government affairs in Nice. During the struggle between Francis I and Charles V, great damage was caused by the passage of the armies invading Provence. Pestilence and famine raged in the city for several years. It was in the nearby town of Villeneuve-Loubet that the two monarchs in 1538 concluded, through the mediation of Pope Paul III, a truce of 10 years. In 1543, Nice was attacked by the united Franco-Ottoman forces of Francis I and Barbarossa Hayreddin Pasha, in the Siege of Nice. And, though the inhabitants repulsed the assault which succeeded the terrible bombardment, they were ultimately compelled to surrender, and Barbarossa was allowed to pillage the city and to carry off 2,500 captives. Pestilence appeared again in 1550 and 1580. In 1600, Nice was briefly taken by the Duke of Guise. By opening the ports of the county to all nations, and proclaiming full freedom of trade, the commerce of the city was given great stimulus, the noble families taking part in its mercantile enterprises. Captured by Nicolas Catinat in 1691, Nice was restored to Savoy in 1696. But it was again besieged by the French in 1705, and in the following year its citadel and ramparts were demolished. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 once more gave the city back to the Duke of Savoy, who was on that same occasion recognized as King of Sicily. In the peaceful years which followed, the new town was built. From 1744 till the Peace of Aix-la-Chapelle, the French and Spaniards were again in possession. In 1775 the king, who in 1718 had swapped his sovereignty of Sicily for the Kingdom of Sardinia, destroyed all that remained of the ancient liberties of the Commune. Conquered in 1792 by the armies of the First French Republic, the county of Nice continued to be part of France until 1814. But after that date it reverted to the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia. French Nice, after the Treaty of Turin was signed in 1860 between the Sardinian king and Napoleon III, the county was again indefinitely ceded to France as a territorial reward for French assistance in the Second Italian War of Independence against Austria, which saw Lombardy unified with Piedmont-Sardinia. The cession was ratified by regional referendum. Over 25,000 electors out of a total of 30,700 in favor of the attachment to France. Savoy was also transferred to the French crown by similar means. Giuseppe Garibaldi, born in Nice, opposed the cession to France. Italian irredentists considered Nice one of their main nationalist goals, along with Istria, Dalmatia, Corsica and Trentino. In 1942 and 1943 the city was occupied and administered by Italy during World War II. The 20th century saw the arrival of modern transportation. In 1900, the tramway de Nice electrified its horse-drawn streetcars and spread its network to the entire department from Menton to Cannes-sur-Mer. By the 1930s additional bus connections added to the transportation network of the entire area. In the 1930s Nice hosted international car racing in the Formula Libre on the so-called Circuit Nice. The circuit started along the waterfront just south of the Jardin Albert I, then headed westward along the Promenade des Anglais, followed by a hairpin turn at the Hotel Negresco to come back eastward and around the Jardin Albert I before heading again east along the beach on the Quai des Étoiles Unis. As war broke out in September 1939, Nice became a city of refuge for many displaced foreigners, notably Jews fleeing the Nazi progression into Eastern Europe. From Nice many sought further shelter in the French colonies, Morocco and North and South America. After July 1940 and the establishment of the Vichy regime, anti-Semitic aggressions accelerated the exodus, starting in July 1941 and continuing through 1942. On August 26, 1942, 655 Jews of foreign origin were rounded up by the Laval government and interned in the Orva barracks. Of them, 560 would be deported to Drancy internment camp on August 31, 1942. Due to the activity of the Jewish banker Angelo Donati and of the Capuchin friar Pari Marie Bernau, a registered trademark T, the local authorities hindered the applications of anti-Jewish Vichy laws. The first Euro-Ra copyright assistants Euro to the new regime were a group of high school seniors of the Liquor Copyright E de Nice, now Liquor Copyright E Massa Copyright Now, in September 1940, later arrested and executed in 1944 near Castellane. The first public demonstrations occurred on July 14, 1942, when several hundred protesters took to the streets along the Avenue de la Victoire and Place Massa Copyright Now. After November 1942 and the arrival of Italian troops occupying the city, a certain ambivalence remained among the population, many recent immigrants of Italian ancestry. However, the resistance gained momentum after the Italians surrendered in 1943 when the German armies occupied Vichy France. Reprisals intensified between December 1943 and July 1944 when many partisans were tortured and executed by the local Gestapo and the French milices. Nice was also heavily bombarded by the American aviation in preparation for the Allied landing in Provence, and famine ensued in the course of the summer of 1944. Finally, American paratroopers entered the city on August 30, 1944, and Nice was finally liberated. The consequences of the war were heavy. The population decreased by 15% and the economic life was totally disrupted. In the second half of the 20th century, Nice enjoyed an economic boom primarily driven by tourism and construction. Two men dominated this period: Jean-Marc Dessin, mayor for 33 years from 1928 to 1943 and from 1947 to 1965, and his son Jacques, mayor for 24 years from 1966 to 1990. Under their leadership, the city experienced extensive urban renewal and new constructions were undertaken. The arrival of the Pieds Noirs, refugees from Algeria after 1962 independence, also gave the city a boost and somewhat changed the makeup of its population and traditional views. By the late 1980s, rumors of political corruption in the city government surfaced and eventually formal accusations against Jacques-Marc Dessin forced him to flee France in 1990. Later arrested in Uruguay in 1993, he was extradited back to France in 1994, convicted of several counts of corruption and associated crimes and sentenced to imprisonment. On October 16, 1979, a landslide and an undersea slide caused two tsunamis that hit the western coast of Nice. These events killed between 8 and 23 people. In February 2001, European leaders met at Nice to negotiate and sign what is now the Treaty of Nice, amending the institutions of the European Union. In 2003, local chief prosecutor of Permeric de Montgolfier alleged that some judicial cases involving local personalities had been suspiciously derailed by the local judiciary, which he suspected of having unhealthy contacts through Masonic lodges with the very people prosecuted or judged. A controversial official report stated later that de Montgolfier had made unwarranted accusations. Coat of Arms. The coat of arms of Nice appeared for the first time in a copy of the regulations of Amadeus VIII, probably written in around 1430. The Nice is symbolized by a red eagle on white background, placed on three mountains, which can be described in French heraldic language as d'argent ou aigle de Goyal posa copyright sur trois coupeaux. The arms have only undergone minor changes as the eagle has become more and more stylized. It now wears a coronet for the county of Nice, and the three mountains are now surrounded by a stylized sea. The presence of the eagle, an imperial emblem, showed that these arms are related to the power of the House of Savoy. The eagle standing over the three hills is a depiction of Savoy, referring to its domination over the country around Nice. The combination of white and red is a reference to the colors of the flag of Savoy. The three mountains symbolize a territorial honor, without concern for geographic realism. Administration. Located in the Provence-Alpes-Côte region, Nice is a commune in the prefecture of the Alpes Maritimes département. However, it is also the largest city in France that is not a regional capital. The much larger Marseille is its regional capital. The current mayor of Nice is Christian Estrosi, who was elected in 2008. He is a member of the Union for a Popular Movement, the party supporting former President Nicolas Sarkozy. Climate. Nice has a hot summer Mediterranean climate, enjoying mild winters with moderate rainfall. It is one of the warmest Mediterranean climates for its latitude. Summers are hot, dry, and sunny. Rainfall is rare in this season, and a typical July month only records 1 or 2 days with measurable rainfall. The temperature is typically above 20 degrees Celsius, and frequently reaches 30 degrees Celsius. The climate data is recorded from the airport, located just meters from the sea. Summer temperatures, therefore, are often higher in the city. The average maximum temperature in the warmest months of July and August is about 27 degrees Celsius. The highest recorded temperature was 37.7 degrees Celsius on August 1, 2006. Autumn generally starts sunny in September and becomes more cloudy and rainy towards October, while temperatures usually remain above 20 degrees Celsius until November, where days start to cool down to around 17 degrees Celsius. Winters are characterized by mild days, cool nights, and variable weather. Days can be either sunny and dry, or damp and rainy. Frost is unusual and snowfalls are so extremely rare that they are remembered by inhabitants as special events. The average minimum temperature in January is around 5 degrees Celsius. Spring starts mild and rainy in late March, and is increasingly warm and sunny towards June. Vegetation and geography. The natural vegetation of Nice is typical for a Mediterranean landscape, with a heavy representation of broadleaf evergreen shrubs. Trees tend to be scattered but form dense forests in some areas. Large native tree species include evergreens such as holm oak, stone pine and arbutus. Many introduced species grow in parks and gardens. Palms, eucalyptus and citrus fruits are among the trees which give Nice a subtropical appearance. But there are also species familiar to temperate areas around the world. Examples include horse chestnut, linden and even Norway spruce. Geographically, Nice consists of two large bays. Villefranche-sur-Mer sits on an enclosed bay, while the main expanse of the city lies between the old port city and the aéroport de Quartier d'Izza, across a gently curving bay. The city rises from the flat beach into gentle rising hills, then is bounded by surrounding mountains that represent the southern and nearly the western extent of the Ligurian Alps range. Economy and tourism. Nice is the seat of the Chambre de commerce et d'industrie Nice Quartier d'Izza. It manages the Nice, Quartier d'Izza Airport and the Cannes, Mandelieu Airport, as well as the Port of Nice. Investors from France and abroad can benefit from the assistance of the Quartier d'Izza Economic Development Agency Team Quartier d'Izza. Among tourists, Nice is the second most popular French city after Paris, a fact which, combined with the difficulties of land travel at long distance, allows it to have the third busiest airport in France in terms of passenger numbers. It is easily accessible, being just 4 hours from Paris by train, and the airport is located just minutes away from the city. Nice has one conference center, the Palais des Congrès Acropolis. The city also has several business parks, including L'Arenas, Nice the Plain, Nice Mar Copyright Ridier, Saint Isidore, and the Northern Forum. In addition, the city features several shopping centers such as Nice d'Oil, Nice TNL, Nice Lingostieri, Northern Forum, Street Isidore, the Trinity and Cap 3000 in Saint Laurent du Var. Sophia Antipolis is a technology park northwest of Antibes. Much of the park is within the commune of Valbonne. Established between 1970 and 1984, it primarily houses companies in the fields of computing, electronics, pharmacology and biotechnology. Several institutions of higher learning are also located here, along with the European headquarters of W3C. The park is named after Sophie Glickman-Toumarkine, the wife of French Senator Pierre Lafitte, founder of the park, and incidentally, Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. The second half of the park's name is derived from Antipolis, the ancient Greek name of Antibes. The Nice metropolitan area had a GDP amounting to $47.7 billion, and $34,480 per capita, slightly lower than the French average. Transport, port. The port of Nice is also known as Limpiar Port. This name comes from the Limpiar spring which fed a small lake in a marshy zone where work on the port was started in 1745. Today this is the principal harbour installation of Nice. There is also a small port in the Carrez district. The port is the first port cement manufacturer in France, linked to the treatment plants of the rollers of the Valley of Palan. Fishing activities remain but the number of professional fishermen is now less than 10. Nice, being the point of continental France nearest to Corsica, has ferry connections with the island developed with the arrival of NGV or high-speed craft. Two companies provide the connections, SNCM, a partially public company, and Corsica Ferries, a Euro-Sardinia Ferries, an entirely private company. Located in front of the port, the place Cuisine has been renamed Place of Corsica. Nice Des Airport. Nice Des Airport is the third most important airport in France after Charles de Gaulle Airport and Orly Airport, both in Paris. It is on the Promenade des Anglais, near La Copyright Nels, and has two terminals. Due to its proximity to the Principality of Monaco, it also serves as that site a Eurostates airport. A helicopter service provided by Heliair Monaco and Monaco links the city and airport. It averages 39 flights a day. It is run by the Chamber of Commerce and the Nice des industry. Its director is Hervé Copyright de Place, director of the des airports, which includes Cannes, Mandelieu Airport. In 2009, 9,830,987 passengers traveled through the airport. Rail. The main railway station is Niceville, served both by high-speed TGV trains connecting Paris and Nice in less than 6 hours and by local commuter TER services. Marseille is reached in 2.5 hours. Nice also has international connections to Italy, Switzerland, Belgium, and Russia. Nice is also served by several suburban stations including Nice Street Augustin, Nice Street Roche and Nice Riquois. Nice is also the southern terminus of the independently run Chemins de Fer de Provence railway line, which connects the city with Digne in approximately 4 hours. A metro-like suburban service is also provided on the southern part of the line. Tram. Tramway de Nice began operating horse-drawn trams in 1879. Electrified in 1900, the combined length of the network reached 144 km by 1930. The replacement of trams with trolley buses began in 1948 and was completed in 1953. In 2007, the new tramway de Nice linked the northern and eastern suburbs via the city centre. 2 other lines are currently in the planning stage. The second line will run east-west from Place Massa Copyright Na to the Nice des Airport, extending to Cannes-sur-Mer and Le Port, while the third line will provide a connection to the future TGV Nice Saint-Augustin Lingostieri rail station. Road. The A8 autoroute and the Route Nationale 7 pass through the Nice agglomeration, linking Marseille with Italy. Sites. The Promenade des Anglais is a promenade along the Baie des Anges, which is a bay of the Mediterranean, in Nice. Before Nice was urbanized, the coastline at Nice was just bordered by a deserted stretch of beach covered with large pebbles. The first houses were located on higher ground well away from the sea, as wealthy tourists visiting Nice in the 18th century did not come for the beach, but for the gentle winter weather. The areas close to the water were home to Nice's dock workers and fishermen. In the second half of the 18th century, many wealthy English people took to spending the winter in Nice, enjoying the panorama along the coast. When a particularly harsh winter up north brought an influx of beggars to Nice, some of the rich Englishmen proposed a useful project for them, the construction of a walkway along the sea. The city of Nice, intrigued by the prospect of a pleasant promenade, greatly increased the scope of the work. The promenade was first called the Chemin des Anglais by the Niçois in their native dialect, Niçard. After the annexation of Nice by France in 1860, it was rechristened La Promenade des Anglais, replacing the former Niçard name with its French translation. The Hotel Negresco on the Promenade des Anglais was named after Henri Negresco, who had the palatial hotel constructed in 1912. In keeping with the conventions of the time, when the Negresco first opened in 1913, its front opened on the side opposite the Mediterranean. Another place worth mentioning is the small street parallel to the Promenade des Anglais, leading from Nice's downtown, beginning at Place Massa Copyright Na and running parallel to the promenade in the direction of the airport for a short distance of about 4 blocks. This section of the city is referred to as the Zone Piétonne, or pedestrian zone. Cars are not allowed, making this avenue a popular walkway. Here, tourists can find a fine selection of restaurants, specializing in various types of cuisine, including néo-sectionoise, French, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish and Italian. There is also a large selection of café copyrights where one can sit and enjoy an upper copyright rétif, as well as several bakeries with coffee, cake, and a terrace. There are also plenty of small shops selling clothing, shoes, and souvenirs. Old Nice is also home to the upper copyright Rue de Nice. It was constructed at the end of the 19th century under the design of French Section 1, to replace King Charles IV copyright Lix's Macaroni Theatre. Today, it is open to the public and provides a regular program of performances. Other squares include, Carré Centaure, Monument aux Morts, the Port, Cauers Salia, Jardin Botanique de la Ville de Nice, Musée Massena, Marcha Copyright aux Fleurs, Old Nice, Grand Hôtel Impa Copyright Real, Fort of Montauban, Squares, Place Massa Copyright Na. The Place Massa Copyright Na is the main square of the city. Before the Palin River was covered over, the Pont Neuf was the only practicable way between the old town and the modern one. The square was thus divided into two parts in 1824. With the demolition of the Massa Copyright Na Casino in 1979, the Place Massa Copyright Na became more spacious and less dense and is now bordered by red ochre buildings of Italian architecture. The recent rebuilding of the tram line gave the square back to the pedestrians, restoring its status as a real Mediterranean square. It is lined with palm trees and stone pines, instead of being the rectangular roundabout of sorts it had become over the years. Since its construction, the Place Massa Copyright Na has always been the spot for great public events. It is used for concerts, and particularly during the summer festivals, the Corso Carnavalesque in February, the military procession of July 14 or other traditional celebrations and banquets. The Place Massa Copyright Na is a 2-minute walk from the Promenade des Anglais, Old Town, Town Centre, and Albert I Garden. It is also a large crossroads between several of the main streets of the city, Avenue Jean Mar Copyright Dessin, Avenue Phare Copyright Lix Phare, Boulevard Jean Jaurès, Avenue de Verdun and Rue du Freddo. Place Garibaldi. The Place Garibaldi also stands out for its architecture and history. It is named after Giuseppe Garibaldi, hero of the Italian unification. The square was built at the end of the 18th century and served as the entry gate to the city and end of the road to Turin. It took several names between 1780 and 1870 and finally Place Garibaldi in September 1870. A statue of Garibaldi, who was fiercely in favor of the union of Nice with Italy, stands in the center of the square. The recent rebuilding of the area to accommodate the new tramway line gave mostly the entire square to pedestrians. The architecture is in line with the Turin model, which was the norm of urban renewal throughout the entire realm of the House of Savoy. It is a crossroads between the Vieux Nice and the town centre. Place Garibaldi is close to the eastern districts of Nice, Port Limpiar, and the TNL Commercial Centre. This square is also a junction of several important streets, the Boulevard Jean Jaurès, the Avenue de la Rue Copyright Publique, the Rue Cassini and the Rue Catherine Czar Copyright Guérin. Place Rossetti. Entirely enclosed and pedestrianised, this square is located in the heart of the Old Town. With typical buildings in red and yellow ochres surrounding the square, the Cafe Copyright Rail St. Ra Copyright Parrot and the fountain in the centre, Place Rossetti is a must-see spot in the Old Town. By day, the place is invaded by the terraces of traditional restaurants and the finest ice cream makers. By night, the environment changes radically, with tourists and youths flocking to the square, where music reverberates on the walls of the small square. The square's lighting at night gives it a magical aspect. Place Rossetti is in the center of the Old Town, streets Jesus, Rossetti, Masconat and the Pont Vieux, Cauers Salia. The Cauers Salia is situated parallel to the Quai des Permeltats Unis. In the past, it belonged to the upper classes. It is probably the most traditional square of the town, with its daily flower market. The Cauers Salia also opens on the Palais des Rois-Sards. In the present, the court is mostly a place of entertainment. There are good restaurants serving typical Niçois cuisine, markets and many pubs. It is no doubt one of the most active spots in Nice. Place du Palais. As its name indicates, the Place du Palais is where the Palais de la Justice of Nice is located. On this square, there also is the Palais Rusca, which also belongs to the Justice Department. The square is also notable due to the presence of the city clock. Today, the Place du Palais is alive day and night. Often, groups of youths will hang out on the steps leading to the Palais de la Justice. Concerts, films, and other major public events frequently occur in this space. It is situated halfway between the Cauers Salia and Place Massa Copyright Na. Religious. Saint Ra Copyright Parrot Cathedral, 17th century, Russian Orthodox Cathedral, Notre Dame de Nice, Saint Jeanne d'Arc Church, 20th century, sports and entertainment, Stade du Ré, Alliance Riviera, Stade Charles Herman, Palais Nicaea, Nice Jazz Festival, sports, the city's major football club is OGC Nice. They play in Ligue 1. Population, evolution of the population, source Isolde Cassini until 1962, INSEE database from 1968. The metropolitan area of Nice, defined by INSEE, is home to 888,784 inhabitants and its urban area totals 933,080 inhabitants, which makes it the sixth largest in France. Roughly 10% of the population has foreign citizenship. The six largest immigrant groups are from Tunisia, Italy, Morocco, Algeria, Portugal, Spain. The city saw a big demographic rise in the second half of the 19th century, a period when the population more than doubled, mainly due to French immigration. At the beginning of the 20th century, this rise intensified with the arrival of internal immigrants from the county of Nice itself. After the First World War, the city had a strong increase in population. Immigration was again the reason of this growth. The hotel industry and that of the construction industry, in full strength in the 1920s, attracted the world more and more and thus made it possible for Nice to become a town of national importance. In 1921, Nice then became the 11th most populous town of France, then in 1931, the 8th, before being ranked 6th in 1946. Thereafter the city reached its current demographic level due to the arrival of 60,000 people including French citizens from Algeria. Since the 1970s, the number of inhabitants has not changed significantly. The relatively high migration to Nice is compensated by a natural negative growth of the population. Nice has a high proportion of elderly people, and as such has one of the highest median ages in France. Currently, the population of the city is growing again, the most likely reason of which is a preference for the climate. Nice was projected to have 360,000 citizens in 2008, and will have 370,000 by 2012. Observatory. The Observatoire de Nice is located on the summit of the Mont Gros. The observatory was initiated in 1879 by the banker Raphael Bischoffsheim. The architect was Charles Garnier, and Gustave Eiffel designed the main dome. The 76-centimeter refractor telescope that became operational in 1888 was at the time the world's largest telescope. It was outperformed 1 year later by the 36-inch refractor at the Lick Observatory at University of California, Santa Cruz. As a scientific institution, the Nice Observatory no longer exists. It was merged with CERGA in 1988 to form the Observatoire de la Quartier d'Issa. Culture. Nice is one of the oldest human settlements in the world. Terre Armata, an archaeological site dating from the Lower Paleolithic Age, is situated near Nice. Nice itself was established by the ancient Greeks. There was also an independent Roman city, Semindum, near Nice, where the Hill of Simmias is located. It is an archaeological site with treasures, of which only a small part has been excavated. The excavated site includes thermal baths, arenas and Roman road. Since the 2nd century AD, the light of the city has attracted many famous painters and sculptors such as Chagall, Matisse, Niki de Saint-Phal, Klein, Arman and Sosno. Nice inspired many composers and intellectuals in different countries, for example Berlioz, Rossini, Nietzsche etc. Nice also has numerous museums of all kinds, Muséum copyright Marc Chagall, Musée copyright Matisse, Musée copyright des Beaux-Arts, Musée copyright International d'Art Anatole Jakovsky, Musée copyright Terra Mata, Museum of Asian Art, Musée copyright d'Art Moderne et de Contemporain which devotes much space to the well-known Permale Call of Niça Euro, Museum of Natural History, Musée copyright Massa copyright NA, Naval Museum and Galerie des Ponchettes. Being a vacation resort, Nice hosts many festivals throughout the year, such as the Carnaval de Nice and the Nice Jazz Festival. Nice has a distinct culture due to its unique history. The local language îniș is an Occitan dialect. It is still spoken by a substantial minority. Strong Italian and Corsican influences make it more intelligible than other extant Provençal sectional dialects. In the past, Nice welcomed many immigrants from Italy, as well as Spanish and Portuguese immigrants. However, in the past few decades immigration has been open to include immigrants from all over the world, particularly those from former northern and western African colonies, as well as Southeast Asia. Traditions are still alive, especially in folk music and dances. The most famous dance is the farandole. Since 1860 a cannon is shot at 12 o'clock sharp. The detonation can be heard almost all over the city. This tradition goes back to Sir Thomas Coventry, who intended to remind the citizens of having lunch on time. Cuisine. The cuisine of Nice is especially close to those of Provence but also Liguria and Piedmont and uses local ingredients but also those from more remote regions, in particular from Northern Europe, because ships which came to pick up olive oil arrived full of food products, such as dried haddock. Nice has a few local dishes. There is a local tart made with onions and anchovies, named pistolet de riz. Soca is a type of pancake made from chickpea flour. Farci nia section wa is a dish made from vegetables stuffed with a mixture of breadcrumbs, meat, and herbs. And salade nia section ois is a tomato salad with green peppers of the corn variety, baked eggs, tuna or anchovies, and olives. Local meat comes from neighboring valleys, such as the Sheep of Sisteron. Local fish, such as mullets, bream, sea urchins, and anchovies are used to a great extent, so much so that it has given birth to a proverb, fish are born in the sea and die in oil. Examples of nia section wa specialities include, beignets de fleurs de courgettes, ratatouille, picade, pistolet de riz, pan bagnat, soca, soup or pistou, tourte de blettes, daube, farci, salade nia section ois, education, University of Nice Sophia Antipolis, Institut a copyright com, a Permale Col des Hautes a copyright Udes Commercials du Nord, a Permale Col pour l'informatique et les nouvelles technologies, Villa Aussen, ESRA Film School, Institut Super Copyright Ria Europa Copyright End of Formation par l'action, Supinfo, International Relations. Twin towns are Euro sister cities, Nice is twinned with. Notable people. See also. References. Sources, INSEE, this article incorporates text from a publication now in the public domain, Chisholm, Hugh, ed. Encyclopædia Britannica. Cambridge University Press A. This article incorporates text from a publication now in the public domain, Herbermann, Charles, ed. Nice. Catholic Encyclopedia. Robert Appleton Company. Further reading, published in the 19th century, Nice. Handbook for Travelers in Northern Italy. London, John Murray. 1866. Nice. Italy. Koblenz, Karl Bauerdecker. 1870. C.B. Black. Nice. The Riviera. Or, The Coast from Marseille to Leghorn. London, Adam and Charles Blacker, published in the 20th century, T.G. Bonney, A.L. Nice. The Mediterranean, its storied cities and venerable ruins. New York, J. Potter, Nice. The Encyclopaedia Britannica. New York, Encyclopaedia Britannica 1910. OCLCA 14,782,424, Nice. Southern France, including Corsica. Leipzig, Bauerdecker. 1914. External links. Niça between sea and mountains. Official French website, official website of the city of Nice, official website of Nice Metropolis, Visitors and Convention Bureau Nice, Nice at DMOZ.